Here's an interesting constitutional, political question, and it's come up today. Has Britain just surrendered control of its decision making process, specifically with respect to how it deals with China? This has stirred up both economic headlines and constitutional unease. The US UK trade deal announced today, or was it announced yesterday? Time flies, doesn't it? He announced yesterday, but it didn't really. We didn't really pay much attention to it yesterday because it coincided with the election of the Pope. But, some things take priority, and many people have hailed this trade deal as a breakthrough for British steel and cars. But in truth, it may expose Britain to deeper strategic vulnerability. While the public-facing narrative is one of economic partnership, behind the diplomatic choreography lies a more troubling question. Has Donald Trump acquired de facto leverage over UK sovereignty, specifically our investment decisions regarding China? Let's begin with the contours of the agreement. This is not a comprehensive free trade agreement, but a narrow sectoral accord. The United States has agreed to reduce its punitive tariffs on British cars. We won't hit you as hard as we promised to last week, from 25% to 10%, and drop tariffs on UK steel and aluminium altogether. In exchange, the UK has lowered tariffs on certain US goods, such as ethanol and beef. It's also agreed to substantial procurement deals, including a $10 billion commitment from a British airline to Boeing. The government presented this as a job-saving measure, particularly for luxury car makers and steel workers. Trade Secretary Jonathan Reynolds even suggested thousands of British workers were days away from redundancy without it, but this is only half the story. The more controversial element emerged from the Telegraph's reporting this afternoon, a clause in the agreement stating that both countries will, quote, cooperate on the effective use of investment security measures. Now, the language is typically diplomatic, vague, perhaps intentionally so, but government sources suggest this allows the United States to flag concerns about Chinese investment in the UK, particularly in sectors considered sensitive such as energy, defence or high-tech manufacturing. Technically, this would trigger the UK's own National Security and Investment Act, but critically, the Americans get to ring the bell, a sort of veto, as one negotiator has put it. This isn't just economic alignment, it's strategic acquiescence, and Starmer's administration insists this is not a veto, and the Treasury Minister Darren Jones has called such claims complete nonsense. But are they complete nonsense? We must ask, why is the United States so preoccupied with Chinese investment in Britain? Quite simply because the UK could become a back door into the US market, and Trump's administration, fixated on isolating Beijing economically, fears that Chinese entities could launder influence via Britain and thereby circumvent American restrictions. And that is why the White House has demanded assurances that UK steel and pharmaceuticals exported to the US do not originate in China. The deeper concern is that Britain is no longer fully sovereign in its commercial choices. If Chinese involvement in UK infrastructure, batteries, offshore wind, telecoms is subject to Washington's suspicion, then British ministers are effectively being asked to govern in line with US paranoia. Sovereignty is not just about flags and borders, it's about independent economic agency. And this is the broader irony. This deal, Trump triumphantly declared, was made because of Brexit. Indeed, Brexit was meant to restore control, but in reality we've left Brussels only to become more beholden to other people, in this case to Washington. Lord Mandelson, present at the White House announcement, called this just a beginning. But of what? Preferential treatment under Trump's next tariff war? A pattern of economic dependency? Critics like Priti Patel, remember her? And Kemi Badenoch, we can't forget her. Well, we can every time she opens her mouth on Wednesday afternoon. But no fans of Starmer, either of them, nevertheless raise a valid concern in this case. Britain gave up more than it got. US average tariffs on UK goods remain high while ours are dropping. And although Starmer's team boasts of saving British jobs, the terms are asymmetrical. This is not an anti-American argument, by the way. Close ties with Washington are vital. But the framing of this deal and the language of shared scrutiny, cloaked in strategic vagueness, allow for mission creep. If Britain cannot greenlight infrastructure projects or attract investment without first glancing across at the Atlantic, the people on the other side of the Atlantic for approval, then we've got to ask, what did we gain from Brexit if we traded one veto for another? As ever, the devil is in the unpublished documents, and the illusion is in the celebratory press releases. But that's the point. There's a big difference between the one and the other, isn't there?